Hello. All right, do you want to get here? Yeah.
Hello, welcome. Thank you all for coming. We're very excited to be here today, and we today would like to tell you about the evolution of social AR. So with social AR, maybe you think of the Snapchat dog ears lens, the famous example, but it has come a long way since then, and there's a lot has happened, and we're very happy to show you where it is right now and what you can do with it. So let us first introduce ourselves.
Yeah, so,
Sorry.
yeah, we have a clicker. Yeah, so I'll start by doing a brief introduction about myself. So my name is Arthur. I've been working as an AR creative technologist for about 2 years now. I initially was studying electrical and electronic engineering, which we'll see in a bit has a lot of similarities with what I'm doing nowadays. And yeah, I'm also a Snap AR ambassador and TikTok ambassador, so I've been doing this for a little while. And currently I'm working full-time at Go Spooky, which is a social media agency focused on AR and on building different immersive experiences for a bunch of clients. And in my work, I like to focus mainly on two things right now. So you might have seen a lot of these things floating around on social media, but I work a lot with making experiences that allow you to create a connection between the digital and physical world. And I like to kind of combine those two and create a bridge where an experience can have a connection between the physical and digital worlds. And so that's why a lot of my work has interactions with hands and with feet, because you're able to create something that feels real and feels also real time, which is really valuable. And the other thing I focus on a lot is creating experiences on the world. So this is a few examples that I've done recently with different cities where I just place content on a world scale. And I think it creates a really good connection to have these experiences blown up. And it makes you feel also like you can impact your surroundings, which is really cool. So now.
Yeah, and I'm Max. I'm also a creative technologist, and I mostly work with AR. These are a couple silly things that I make. I sometimes post these sort of weird experiments with AR, which is always really fun to make. Pancake flip, where you have to flip a pancake with your hand, and it's really hard. And then the seagulls that you can spawn around you. These kind of things are always the ones that I like to post online, and then you can kind of like showcase what is possible and how much of almost a game engine these kind of social engines are actually becoming. Maybe you recognize the profile picture from Twitter. Maybe some of you. I've been posting like a bunch of R&D. That's what I'm most known for, I think, like posting my experiments and technical sort of experience online so that other people can learn from it and get better. So these are like the sort of experiments that I do. I like to just grab a feature, like the body tracking in this case, and see how far you can push it. So here you can like do 3D trailing of yourself in 3D space. Yeah, for those like who are not as familiar with social AR, everything that we're showing here on the screen are our own work, but also they're running on a mobile device, like in real time. These are not rendered VFX or anything. This is actual, like, just mobile augmented reality. And this is another example that I made, a portal gun. It's like a working AR portal gun in your own room, and you can shoot it at any surface, and it will reproject the 3D scan of the room according to the right perspective. So these are like these sort of gaming prototypes that are really fun to make to show that social AR has a lot to offer. Let's see. Oh yeah, and then also as a creative technologist, I really like everything interactive. This is a whole different thing. This is not AR, but this is something else that I made a few months ago, and I just thought it would be really fun to show it. It's like a modded instant camera, and there's a Raspberry Pi inside of it, and when you take a picture, it shows it on the display, wherever the display is on the world. It just instantly syncs it. So you can, it's like an e-paper display, you can place it anywhere, and then the picture is shown there. My grandma has it now, so I can just send her pictures sometimes. And it's that's like the sort of stuff that I really like to do as a creative technologist. But today is of course about augmented reality. So let's get back to the main goal of this talk.
Yeah, so for this goal, for this talk, the goal that we actually wanted to have is to, have this talk make you leave with something and actually not just be a bit superficial. So we know that there's a lot of people from different industries, and maybe you're not all aware of what social AR can actually do today. Like, the platforms have evolved a lot since we started, and so we really want to change your perspective on that. And to do that, we're going to start by explaining a little bit how social AR was when we jumped in. So for me personally, I jumped in when I was at the peak of the first lockdown during COVID, super bored, like locked in and had nothing else better to do. And I wanted to figure out, okay, like how can I make some of these, Instagram filters that were floating around. And so I started by making really basic things. I was studying electrical engineering, so I had no real programming experience with JavaScript and things like that. So I was just kind of mixing things around and seeing what I could make. And I had a few of these effects that I published, which were super simple, but some of them blew up. And this is where I started getting some of my first clients and actually started considering this field as a kind of more or less viable career path. So yeah, I had like a few client projects back then, and after that, got recruited. And yeah, oh, and before that, also, I was actually, during university, I worked on a research project with the HoloLens 2, which allowed you to display and transmit information, such as a mocap position of a person. So from a webcam, you could extract information about the person's movement and then transmit it to a HoloLens all in real time, which really propelled me to want to do more of this mixed reality.
Yeah, and I got started in visual effects for film. That was like what I did before AR. This is not augmented reality, just want to make that very clear, because sometimes there's this mix-up between AR and VFX. This is actual VFX that I did before I knew about the existence of AR. But it's, I think there's a lot of similarities between VFX and AR, and that's also how I got started in AR. I really liked the premise of that it was real-time instead of rendered like this one. So you're of course talking about projection mapping and all the same techniques that you would use in AR, except this one is a lot less real-time. But then I jumped into Lens Studio end of 2017 or beginning of 2018, a bit when the first dumb memes started to appear. This was like, AR was like back then used mostly for memes. So these kind of lenses would be really fun to make, and they would get millions of views. And that's kind of where, for me, AR really took off online. There was a big following there for just memes that you could place in your environment. But then pretty quickly on, I got really fascinated by the promise of AR, which is not just overlaying visuals, but actually using your surroundings and having interactions with your surroundings. This is Treasure Hunt. It's a lens that I made at Go Spooky together with Lisi Mononen, who I work with today. And we made this game that can generate a level completely based on your current surroundings. So you can play it in your living room or in your garden, and it just maps out the place that you're in this pirate-style treasure map, sort of paper with sketch on it, and it's like the assets are actually placed around you and you're using the scene. And that's for me really what AR is about. Like it's really about where you are and what you're doing with the space. So yeah, why social AR matters.
Yeah, now we're gonna actually start getting into the different reasons why we think social AR really matters. And the first one is accessibility. Actually, this is something that's really cool with social AR, and that a lot of people, especially coming from like video backgrounds, might not know, is that most of the tools are free. So anyone right now can just download Lens Studio, Spark AR, Effect House, and just start making experiences for these platforms. But they're also smartphone compatible, so you don't need to buy an expensive headset. You don't need to have a high-end phone. you can already try out these experiences directly, which is really cool. You don't have to, export your own applications and things like that. But also, there's a lot of assets and templates that are available online. So even if you're not super familiar with programming, like you can really get started quite easily. And I think the most interesting part as well is that these platforms are integrated into really shareable universes. So that kind of ties into the reach of these platforms. There's a lot of people that can basically access your content. All of these platforms have, varying features and varying reasons for why you would build on them. But in general, it's really impressive to see kind of the amount of daily active users that could interact with your content. So you don't need to go for an app store. You can just push it out to these audiences immediately. And as a testimony of that, oh, are we missing a slide? It would appear so.
I think we're missing a slide.
But basically, yeah, we wanted to share some of the numbers of our reach on these platforms. And on TikTok, I'm personally currently sitting at around 8 billion impressions. And on different platforms as well, such as Instagram and Snapchat, we all have like millions of people interacting with these different effects. And that's what makes it really interesting as well. And yeah, finally, of course, if you want to get into social AR, a lot of ads are put on these platforms. So there's a lot of projections of how mobile AR is going to evolve, and we think that's also something you should consider.
And then we would like to take you through the current features, because we don't really know how many of you are in development for any form of AR, maybe enterprise XR, but we just want to show you that social AR is catching up when we're talking about technical terms. So this is just going to be a rundown of all the technical features that you can do today for free in at least one of the social platforms, one of the big three, Lens Studio, Spark, or Effect House for Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok. And we're just going to go through them and show you what is possible, what they can do in real time on a mobile phone. Of course, it all starts with tracking, 3D tracking your scene. That is the essential for anchoring your virtual scene to the real world, getting camera motion. Starting with the basics, you have image tracking. That is one of the better known ones. You can put anything on any image, which is really great for branding or for logos, making them trackable, handheld objects, but also making a painting come alive on your wall. So you get this sort of portal effect. And this is super stable already. You won't see jitters. It's like a stable track, and you can use this. This is something that is very commonly used in social AR. Then more advanced forms of tracking would be body tracking. So 3D pose matching, for example, on the left, where I have these two 3D clones of myself, which are 3D scans, and they're following the real me in the middle. And then on the right, you can see that this lens by Arthur is actually reacting to his position, so to his poses. So when lying flat on the ground, it triggers a certain behavior. You can even get a 3D mesh that is generated from the user, so it follows the fingers and the hands and everything, and you can do stuff with shaders on top of that, or spawn objects that are sticking to your body. And then extending that, you also have hand tracking, of course, like 3D hand tracking, where you can have more personal interactions with the scene around you. So you can push objects, you can make it into occluders or into colliders, use it with physics. And these are really fun to play with, like as a user, but also as a developer. It makes it very easy to have an interaction with your 3D scene that you created. And then there's world meshing, which is my personal favorite, I think. You have an actual 3D mesh of the world around you, and this is based on either LiDAR or on machine learning fallbacks for other devices that don't have LiDAR. The machine learning fallbacks are getting really good. At least Snapchat just did an update on it that is insane. And the LiDAR one is, of course, super stable, and you have this really great way of applying physics to the world around you, so things can crumble down from the ceiling, they can bounce on your couch and then to the table. The smoke here is actually taking the color of the background, so it helps with integrating the whole explosion. And yeah, these are the kind of features that are already very commonly used in these experiences and very possible.
Yeah, to keep going with world meshing, you don't necessarily have to destroy your environment, but I made an experience where you can actually place post-its, and using something like persistent storage, you can actually place post-its, write a note, and have that in your room forever, if you want that. But you can create all of these different interactions that actually adapt with your environment, which I think is really cool. Which kind of leads us to another type of tracking, which is custom locations. And this is like really one of my favorite tracking types, because you can basically turn any location, so like a statue, a building, whatever you want, like a shop front, into a trackable surface where you can place content on that surface, and anyone with a smartphone will just be able to visualize content on there. So here's a little example that I worked on at Go Spooky for the Saatchi Gallery, which was a really cool project where we basically scanned the whole building like with photogrammetry and used that to place content on there. And yeah, this is another prototype that actually has never like been seen out there, I think, which was for a test like prototype for Nike, where I was kind of pushing that custom location interaction with foot tracking. So you would actually be able to just try on the shoes directly from the store, which I thought was pretty neat. So you could really integrate that with a QR code and have people, try that in real time. And of course, an extension of that is something called city scale, which I'm a huge fan of. I've built a lot of stuff with city scale tracking, and it is supported in not that many cities still, but it's a great way to place content in a city and have people anywhere kind of experience that in real time. And this is kind of cheating because I didn't build this on a social AR platform. This is a Unity Google Geospatial project, but you could do the same theoretically on social AR platforms such as Lens Studio. And here, what felt really magical was that you could send these bowling balls from your phone onto a building and just interact with your surroundings, which is really, really fun to do. So yeah, now that we've covered tracking, what else can you actually do? So there's a lot of smaller things that you can do, but that really tie an experience together. And one of those things is dynamic shadows. This was actually a project where I cloned one of my plants and gave it shadows and little animations. And what's really cool is that with the shadows, at a first glance, you're not really sure which one's the real plant and which one isn't. So that's one of those things where dynamic shadows can really add a layer of realism to your project and actually adapt to any animations happening in 3D. And also shaders is another great one, which Max will also have a lot of things to say about, but it's basically a way to compress a lot of visual information into a very light package without having to use a lot of textures and animations. And this is a volumetric cloud, actually, something which would be impossible to do without a shader. And this is another one, actually.
Yeah, so shaders on social platforms are getting super advanced. You can actually just use GLSL code. You can convert something from existing code online. This is all like very transferable. This is an example where I'm using a shader to instance these lights on the GPU. So I can do hundreds or thousands of these lights without actually overloading the CPU with the amount of polygons or whatever. This is just like a performance hack, basically. But you can use shaders for that sort of stuff as well, which is super exciting. Like that is on a mobile device, that is so important, and it's gonna really elevate the whole quality of what you're making, because you can actually use these sort of smoke and mirrors. You can use these kind of game engine tactics now in a social AR platform, which is kind of insane to me. I really like that. And you have physics, cloth physics, which are right now really interesting with digital fashion making such a big, going through such a big growth. So there's a lot of ask right now for wearables, virtual wearables, and try-ons, try before you buy in AR, which is a really cool thing. The one on the right is not actually cloth physics. That's a different type. That's chain physics, but it's both like deformable meshes and these are super interesting visuals to be able to use. And then there's also rigid body physics, as you've seen in a couple other lenses already, but you can actually have stuff bounce or pre-fracture it before it touches the ground, and then when it touches the ground, it can break. I'm noticing my work is very destructive so far, but it's after Christmas. This one's really nice to use. It's yeah, it's just like, and it's using the world mesh, of course. It's bouncing against the ground or against the table that it hits. So you can do all of these sorts of it feels very interactive when it's actually reacting to your own environment.
Yeah, I'm going to take this one. This is another physics project, which I did a while ago. It might not look like it, but this was actually a 2-minute project. 2 hours, sorry, not 2 minutes. But yeah, there's also a bunch of interactions happening with your surroundings, the world mesh, and actually foot tracking. So if you wanted, you could kick these disco balls around, which was pretty neat. And yeah, of course, this project went a little bit viral, but it was basically a project where you could open a portal into someone's house and take their furniture. And the whole idea is that that portal was opened with your hand, and it created a really neat interaction with your surroundings as well. And this is another example where you can use actually gravity from the physics engine directly to move different objects with your hands, which was a really fun one to work on as well.
We would like to just ask you to give it a shot. Open one of these platforms, because they are really fun to play with, and I think you'll be very surprised how friendly they are. They don't have the years of bloat in them. They are very new, all the platforms, the 3 that we mentioned earlier. And it's really fun with social AR as a field. Because of how new it is, everybody who works in social AR is also new to it. You can't be like a lifelong experienced social AR developer. That doesn't exist. So everybody comes from this different background, and each developer has their own sort of origin story, which is really nice. And it really shows that just having one interesting skill, for example, you're a 3D modeler, will already get you very far with social AR, because this is like where it all comes together. And you can collaborate with people, but you can also, there's a bunch of tutorials and templates online. You can just throw one asset or skill that you have in here, and you will get something interesting out of it. So give it a shot, is what I would like to say. But back to a few more features. I see that we don't have a lot of time left, so I think we're going to go a bit faster through it. But particles, we can't not mention particles. They are too cool. They are my favorite thing in development in general. I really like particles. It brings me back to my VFX days a little bit. So you got these very customizable node-based or GLSL particles. This is Lens Studio that you're seeing here, and you can do so much with it. You can make it follow the body mesh, like on the left, where it's actually in 3D following the body mesh, or your world scene around you. Like this is the LiDAR mesh that my phone is seeing, except it's now placing voxels on it and making some glow and all of that. You can do some really cool stuff with that. You can also use particles in more sort of technical ways. For example, to create a crowd system, which is something that I made for a lens that it took a bit too much time, but I'm very happy that I have it now. It's like you can actually render a bunch of people on cards and randomize their colors, and this is 50,000 people walking around in this circle, and it just runs on an iPhone. It's just like, it's fine. There's no performance bottleneck on that. And I recreated the roller coaster tycoon on the right for the people who were into that game. I thought like I have to try that because it's such a cute little character. But these are the kind of things you can do with particles inside of social AR.
Yeah, I'm gonna speed run this because we only have like a few seconds left. But this is another particle demo made a while ago. Really cool because you can interact with multiple people and it reacts to different hand gestures. This is another one which you can use to throw particles, and it combines a glow shader that actually Max made with hand tracking. It was really neat to play around with. You can also use external APIs, which was really cool because you can actually display live data on your effects and get stock information, weather information, just a bunch of different things, really. There's also machine learning, of course, which I don't have time to dive into, but there's a lot of tracking you can do on there. And you can recognize different objects as well and kind of create interactions with segmentation as well. And a new one, which I think is really interesting, is generative AI. It's a little buzzwordy, but it's actually working inside of effects. And this is actually an Art Nouveau effect that converts your what your camera sees into an image with a prompt. And
the last one, if we're doing all the buzzwords, ray tracing is also, of course, an important one. And that is also now completely possible on mobile devices, which is, I still can't believe that, but it's working. And this is not like a multi-render target sort of smoke and mirrors, literal mirrors sort of setup. This is actual rays coming out of the camera and doing like internal reflections on a mesh. And it works. So I'm very happy with that. I don't know how they did it. And then very quickly, we would like to go over what's next for social AR. Like, where is it headed? What is going to be the next, in a technical sense, what's going to be the next chapter? We think there are two things. One is scene understanding is going to get very interesting. So this is Field Day, an app that you can just download and you can train any machine learning model on. You can just train environment and create your own categories like trees or nature or bikes. And then you can literally just export the Lens Studio. There's a button for it. And it gives you a whole Lens Studio template project with the machine learning model in it, everything already set up. So as a developer, this is already incredibly easy to do. We feel that this is coming to the user soon, where the developers are not going to be training the machine learning models themselves. This might be something that is happening in real time while you're in the experience to make it a sort of even more personalized experience, where ML might be there to help the user. Think, a personal item that is suddenly a part of your AR experience. And then the other thing that is obviously now in the works, but that we think is going to be really big, is wearables, like headsets, because social platforms are also working on this. And this is the spectacles on Snap, which is, they are doing fantastic work on. This is recorded inside of them, and you can use all the same features, like the hand tracking and physics and everything, but you actually see it through AR glasses. Not mixed reality, but just, AR. This is another example of something that Lisa and I made. It's a 3D modeling tool in Lens Studio that you can use your hands to drag polygons, and you can actually create a 3D model out of thin air with your fingers, and then export it as a 3D file to later use in 3D software. So this is all with spectacles on, and we think that this is going to be a big, big next thing.
Yeah, and finally, I wanted to show a quick video, but I don't think we have time. It was just another Spectacles Matrix-inspired project. But yeah, we wanted to conclude by saying there's a lot more things that are probably in the works and going to happen. And we hope that we manage to kind of share that excitement for these platforms with you today. And we'd like to thank you for coming here and hearing us talk.